Okay, we're on.
We're on. So today is what? September
4th, I think,
4, 2023.
2023.
So
Labor Day, I think it is this today,
yeah.
a Monday.
So we're out doing labor.
We're out doing labor all right on this. This was once, not long ago, just bare ground. And these trees just say, okay, you're not doing anything, we're going to do what we want to do. And now they're what? At least 40 feet high, would you say?
Maybe.
At least 30.
Or at least 30, yeah.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
10, 20, 30, yeah, 30 something.
And those are, how long has that been, you think? We can look at the growth rings.
Well, that's about 8 to 10 years on these trees, according to the growth ring on that one there.
Yeah.
Huh. Doesn't take long for 10 years to go by anymore.
Yeah. So I was just, I don't know how much you remember from being in the hospital. Do you remember very much?
Yeah, I remember quite a bit in the hospital.
So I got, there's one in there. I don't remember exactly what it was that I was saying, but I was saying how you've been such a, well, two things. One, that this was actually a comment that I made back in December when you and I had a conversation. I watched it yesterday. It was about an hour long, and it took me an hour to get to the point practically. But the point was that I've been this happy kid from Hansville, and it's taken me like 30 years to figure out that I try to understand why people around me aren't as happy.
Ah.
And we also talked a lot about play.
Uh-huh.
And I'm doing, so I'm starting to play with this group called Evolve, Move, Play. And that was the thing. You were just getting done at the hospital, and I went down to San Francisco to play in Golden Gate Park with those guys and gals. And when I interviewed, so the guy who runs it, started it, he interviews people. Like he'll interview you to get in.
Mm-hmm.
Or somebody in his organization interviews you before they allow you to pay them, thousands of dollars to come and play with them, which I think is awesome.
Smart move.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'm trying to accomplish several things here at once. Oh, so in the interview, so one of the things that they asked for was, testimonial. It's like we would like you to, if you got anything to say about what it's like coming to play with us, we'd appreciate a little bit of a testimonial. So with your permission, with your consent, I would share this little bit that you and I are doing, and I would make a point about I called you one of, if not the best playmates that I've ever had in my life.
Uh-huh.
And coming out here and monkeying around with the trees out here, I'm recalling, like, you had me running chokers.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how old I was.
6 or 8, you weren't very old. I think when you're 2, you were pretty strong enough to move chain a little bit. Piece of cable. Huh.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was always a game. So this guy, when he interviewed me to go participate in his organization, one of the things that I said kind of jokingly to him, so he does parkour, which I don't know if you have any concept of what that is, but it's basically, I don't know. It's a fancy word for moving through this world, but they do it in a highly dynamic, very thoughtful manner that has just been always native to me, inherent to me, it feels like. And I was, when I was interviewing with this guy, I kind of half jokingly said, I think that I've been doing what you've been doing with prosthetics my whole life. So you I think maybe as a consequence of, well, I think it's a consequence of two things. One, I think it's your brains. Like you simply have an intellectual capacity. You have the capacity to think and reason that is not normal, as in it's above average at least, and I think it's quite a bit above average, um, which has allowed you to play with machinery in a way that other people simply are not capable of, can't get their head around it, quite literally. So things like jet aircraft,
Uh-huh.
or never mind jet aircraft, little super cubs for that
Yeah.
matter. And so you taught me to play with those toys. So the other consequence was I think you said you suffered pneumonia twice as a
Yeah.
kid, and it kind of debilitated your body.
Right.
Is how I understood that.
Yeah.
So you were not afforded the opportunities that I was. Like my body has always been really. I mean, you just said that I was moving links of chain at 2 years old. Like,
Uh-huh.
and I know from Benjamin, like that kid was bouncing off the walls
Yeah.
at 2 years old.
Yeah.
So, but I had this playground out here that you provided for me to play around in with, first it was things like little big wheels and go-karts, and then it was motorcycles and the whole show.
Uh-huh.
Like it just got to be really riotous with the machinery. And I was doing it at in a I think I was doing the same thing that you were with aircraft, except I could withstand the higher velocity, high impact that
Yeah.
I don't think that your body probably afforded you the opportunity to do. So anyway, the importance of that play, like this is just such a joy. Like I can just go play in the woods, and we're just cutting firewood for just to stay warm
Uh-huh.
for the winter for you guys. Like you're running wood burning stove for heat. So anyway, you got any elaboration on the thoughts about play specifically?
Well, Wes was one of the nurses at the hospital at the university, and he said, how do you be so fit at 88?
Yeah.
And I said, just have fun, and to have fun you play.
Yeah.
And what do you play with? Well, you play with whatever you got to work with during your life.
Yeah.
And so if you give yourself a playground like I did here, deliberately I said, okay, we're leaving Bellevue area and the city atmosphere and finding a place where we can pioneer. And so my kids got to see how you take a place that's just out in the woods and make a home.
Yeah.
And everything out of it. And you kids took it pretty good. You said, oh, wow. Well, we need motorcycles now. And we don't want those smooth little places you can start playing. You made the whoops. And I kind of complained a little bit because I smoothed these nice lanes through the woods for you. And you started, and I can remember when here's a leap off a blank, and you just scared the daylights out of your mother, no.
Yeah.
So you would fly. You took the machinery and played.
Yeah.
Had a lot of fun. Just took it and said, "Oh, I'm going to ride this till I have more of a thrill than just putt down the road." Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what all you got kids did, but you had the campground, playground.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted. You had the isolation, and you could move to the city type thing. The people that were more cityfied, and you could bring your friends here, and you had that ability to show them a little bit more in the world than just their street.
Yeah. So
And
sorry, go ahead.
yeah, so that's all. It's just I just wanted a place where you got some room, elbow room, and you could discover stuff on your own.
Yeah. Yep. Well, we sure did.
And I couldn't keep up with you kids once you got going. You're doing all kinds of stuff that's beyond me as an adult.
Yeah.
We went to the machinery, the automobiles, that kind of stymied both you and Heidi's, especially, that you had pickups that finally quit, or you quit working. It wasn't the pickup, it was what was that car that you had?
I had a Blazer.
The Blazer, when the rear end went out.
Yep, I remember that.
And then it just sat there for a long time. And they said, let's take it apart and see. So, and that kind of made a mechanic out of you. You took it all apart, and we took it to the corner, and he relashed the thing and put it together. And so you were with my mom for a few months, and the neighbor was also a mechanic. You pulled engines in and out until fine. Oh, there's not much to that. You just do it.
Yeah.
And Heidi, the same way, her pickup stayed for a long time because it had an electrical problem. And I said, one day she was ready to be with me long enough to search it out.
Yeah.
And we found it. Okay, there was a burned out piece on the back of the dash panel, all the instrument panel. And we fixed that, and there she had her pickup back. And since then, she wants to know how almost any machine works. And a car, she wants to see how to fix it. Don't just tell her. She wants to be able to do it. So those things, I'm happy about. You kids took it and ran with it, And
so today is the 9th day?
Yeah, March.
Of March, 2025.
25 of them. Yeah.
And the clock says that it's 12:27-ish.
28, 27, 28.
Looks like somebody already adjusted that for daylight savings time.
Yeah, I did that a little earlier in the day.
So we just reviewed we were looking at what we did on September 4th, 2023. And we were dialoguing on the importance of developmental play.
Mm-hmm.
And there's several things that I would like to elaborate a little bit further with you, but I'd like to hear, I didn't give you a chance to gather any observations or insights or anything from that review that you just did of what we were doing down on the tractor and in the woods.
Well, we were musing over how your demeanor at the moment is associated with what you experienced just growing up in an environment that was, that particular way. And so what I was trying to do with my family there, I said, okay, I've been in the city and I've been in the suburbs, and I thought, if you get the rudiments of how life forms itself just by being and doing something, by observing the world around you and let it form the person that you're going to be. So that was my intention in moving way out here. I'm going to have a family now. I need a place for it to grow. And I saw the influences of this town and the city, and I said, well, I'd rather the emphasis be on a different pattern than what they were showing. So that's when you can make your own playground, play out of your own playground, What have I got? I've got some dirt and a stick. Well, that's where you go. And then, if you got a little bit of puddle of water, that's even good. You can even step in it. It'll splash. So it was a delight for me to see how my offspring picked up on what they were observing. And it was for me to point out as I went along, look at there, what's on the ground. There's those spots and stuff. Where they came from. There's a branch up there where the bird must sit and do its droppings.
Yeah.
So I watched that happen. Well, grass is growing there, but not over there. You got moss growing, trees, logs. Some rot, some don't. So, and I couldn't keep up, with all your kids going out in the woods and playing with rocks and sticks and wood, water, kayaks in the water, the ponds. You remember all those different things that you could stumble across and then do stuff with. So it was just an education for me as well, to watch offspring develop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So two of the things that I want to do here, I'll just put them both out, and then
Okay.
if you can choose which, or you can play with them both if you want. But the first one has to do with that election that you made to, I would say, raise a family in a more natural environment rather than artificial.
Yeah.
Which it was, I don't understand that as a knock really on the artificial. You just you noticed that there was a difference,
Oh, yeah.
and you elected that. And then the second part, I wonder, no, I want to basically elaborate a little bit on Evolve, Move, Play specifically as an organization and what it appears to me that it's up to. So I was just getting involved in it when we made that little bit of film in 2023.
Uh-huh.
So I was just in the early phases of exploration. So here in the first part of 2025, I've had way more exposure as to what that organization is up to, participated a whole lot more. And what it really looks like to me it's doing is putting a very fine point on, well, many things, but specifically related to what you and I are talking about and have been participating in mostly, I think, just intuitively our entire lives, definitely my entire life with you, has to do with that experimental developmental play. Having the opportunity, you said play with a stick and some dirt, and if there's a little bit of water in the dirt, oh, even better. And you were describing that process of discovery. You also talked about how there was something about pattern. Oh no, at base you had said, you said something about like noticing how life simply forms itself, so to speak. Do you remember that just now? You were talking about that. It sounded like that you wanted to get that rudimentary understanding and then afford the opportunity for discovery. I'm pretty sure you also said discovery. You get to discover things like, oh, bird droppings. What, you notice something and you're like, oh, causal relationship. What's the cause? Type of thing. So I kind of rambled a bit there. The two things are, one is the fact that EMP, Evolve, Move, Play, is putting together, has put together, affords people an opportunity to do developmental play at a very fine level of detail in a very carefully crafted ecology of practices is the way that we tend to talk about it. So that's one thing, and I'm saying that basically it sounds to me like you were doing that intuitively. And then the second thing is anything further that you have to observe about that intuition or the inclination which you acted upon to raise a family in a natural environment in contrast with raise a family in an more artificial circumstance. Yeah.
Well, I kind of looked at it, not at that time, but as later what I was doing. There's a lifetime each one of us has, and we, I call it, we weave ourselves a tapestry
Yeah.
of life. And the threads that you choose and the colors and the patterns will determine how that shows up. And it, for me, is a continuous knit. And if you want an elaborate pattern, you need to be aware of more and more things.
Yeah.
Or you can make it out of the same thread. You go to the same job, do the same thing, year after year. Lunch is the same, bologna sandwiches. And you end up, oh, you got a nice garment that'll keep you comfortable. Or you can, different threads, run this, a few of these strands, these colors through this way in different patterns by doing, different jobs, looking at the world, different traveling, meeting a lot of different people, getting a lot of different ideas. You can put into your tapestry of life multitudes of ideas, experiences, and aptitudes. You can choose, I want to excel in certain phases, and I want to not bother with others. So it all gives you that nice pattern sometime in your life as you're going along. And usually what I found is, in the pattern of life and having shared it with other people like my wife and my children and neighbors, there's all kinds of different threads brought to you for your tapestry. And there's muds being slung on it again. And you have to do some cleaning and redoing and unweaving and weaving. So at the end of any interval, you've got a certain pattern you can look at and rely upon. So if you build your tapestry, that'll keep you wet, or when you want to be dry, or it'd be dry when you want to be wet. Am I saying that right?
I don't know. What are you trying to say? You trying to say I build a tapestry that keeps me dry when I want to be dry?
No, it keeps the rain off you.
Yep.
Keeps you dry, or you'd like to be in a wet blanket. It keeps you.
Keep you cool.
Yeah. So you can use it for all different kinds of things, and you can. If you carry the simile, to extremes, you can just say, well, yeah, it's got all kinds of pictures. So what I'm really cognizant of now, I look at 90 years, it shows me how short life really is.
Yeah.
And how big my tapestry is.
Yeah. Well, and how rich.
And it's, I've got fold after fold after fold, an image after image after image I can draw upon. This last night I use YouTube a lot.
Yeah.
I was saying, okay, what is it? Music of the 50s and 60s,
Yeah.
the hits. And, yeah, I now remember those things. I now remember those. And so the terms you use on evolve, move, play, if you can bring that into the politics of the world.
Oh, interesting.
Now, as, here's another activity we can do instead of fighting amongst ourselves. We don't need to have a war. We can have a contest of who can bring the most delight into an existence of a civilization.
Yeah.
And so you look at the animal world and you can see the contrast. They eat each other, or in some cases, in other cases they herd together as friends. Yeah. And others are just interact and they just play with each other. The birds taunt each other, some do, some don't. And others don't pay any attention at all to what's going on with the others. So, excuse me, it just gives a broad palette You know, you can have a tapestry or a painting, or in our case, being a living thing, we build our life. Our life is our recorded aspect of, we can use our memory and our ideas to admire our inner tapestry, our inner picture, and express it to others on the outside by behavior. Or I was thinking as well yesterday, listening to some of those musicians, what am I leaving as a legacy to the world? I don't have any books left behind for people to read, you know, and I don't have any movies, and I don't have any music that people have on their records.
We're making a movie right now.
Yeah. See, none of that's out in the commercial world, which is, I think, like most people.
Yeah.
Most people have a beautiful story and a beautiful life, with all sorts of colorizations, is a way of saying that. And I delight in going to the cafe and talking to people.
Yeah.
Mike called, what was that, Monday or Tuesday? Wednesday, I think maybe it was. He said, hey, you want to go to breakfast? He's off early in the morning. And he said, okay, we'll meet you at the cafe at 10. And I walked in there, and there's people, and I immediately engaged the couple next to. And that turned out to be a 2 hour, well, it wouldn't have gone for, might have gone for 2 hours, but all the time we were there.
Yeah.
Of their life. And the common points that happened with Mike and me, geographically and job-wise and political-wise. So, two total strangers, they don't even live around here. They just happen to come by once a month or something and have something to eat.
Yeah.
And I find that that's almost anywhere that I've traveled on the planet, that people are ready to engage. As long as you can keep them interested, they'll stay with it. If you're not on their wavelength, it just phases right away, goes away. I'm thinking of two things. I'm in Australia. I'm on Trans-Australian Airlines going from Sydney down to the next town down. And this lovely young woman comes up, sits beside me. This was fairly, well, the airplanes are maybe half full, and starts talking to me. And she happens to be the Russians, one of their government officials that was in the, what do you call it, the embassy or something there.
Yeah.
One of the, for me, and she's had a few words with me, and I didn't engage in it with her at all on her subject, you know. So she was sophisticated about whatever the politics were.
Yeah.
And me, I wasn't even interested. It didn't even tumble to me what she was. And so that only lasted a few minutes, and she left, you know.
Yeah.
And then the next person, I just casually renting a car at the airport that turned into a very long year after year after year of people coming to visit us here.
Oh.
And their family and me visiting them way in the outback of Australia and their properties, just because it was so casual. In that just a couple of minutes of renting a car, I made that connection. Oh, stop by when you get back to Sydney, and we'll have you over for dinner. And that grew and grew and grew and grew and grew in the relationship, because we had something in common. So if EMP would do the same thing to a certain aspect of the population, it would add that whole movement to a civilization.
Yeah. So there's way more things in what you just said than I can possibly pick up on and somehow knit together. So I want to just pause for a moment
Okay.
and gather my thoughts and choose one, maybe two, no more than three,
Okay.
to see if we can play with that simile of the thread of the tapestry
Okay.
to I suppose tie it off for today. I don't know,
Okay.
do you have a good term for what you do at the ends of threads when you're not done weaving, but you got to go for your break?
You make a tassel.
A tassel. Okay, so you. Okay, so we'll tether the threads in a tassel for purposes of today's dialogue. So points of commonality, common threads, you mentioned because there was something in common. And
And the new things that you weren't even aware of before, like outback friends and the sheep farm.
oh yes, I
See?
remember them.
See?
Yeah.
Who never thought of going to a place where they got 10,000 acres and a couple thousand sheep? Huh.
Okay, so hearing that, I want to play off of two fundamental, distinct from one another, related patterns of behavior. So you just talked about farming or ranching or that mode, which is different from the mode that doesn't do that. The mode that explores, gathers, hunts. Those are two distinct modes. One requires adherence to a particular landscape, so to speak,
Yeah.
and the other not so much. It's nomadic.
Right.
Can be nomadic. Doesn't have to be, but can be nomadic. And what was the first thing?
Well,
that
see, I
said?
was just that gathering and visiting in Sydney, shopping in Sydney one day, overnight in the hotel. The friends meet us, take us in their automobile. We travel for 2 days by automobile, stopping in a city along the way, overnighting with the particular way of, they wake you up with breakfast, brought to your room, and out the door you go, and then to their farm, the ranch, way out in the sticks, 13 miles to the nearest town.
Yeah.
And and a whole different way of life. And that first time we visited there, they had just done their major thing for the year of shearing the sheep and getting this stuff, and then they had to pick up the last few. So we got to see the whole program done in a week's time.
Yeah.
The shearing, the hauling of the trucks, taking the wool into town, these huge bales. We got this whole perspective. And then, okay, ready to go home. Well, we're getting on the airplane at the little town to fly back to Sydney. And the pilots would bring me back up. They say, hey, no, you don't have to sit back there. Come on, sit up in the cockpit with us on the way back. Contrast.
Yeah.
Oh, those people didn't ever do what
Yep.
I just finished doing. But so I, at that time, got several different skeins of thread for my tapestry.
Oh, nice. Skiing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the dialogue gets so rich with you so fast. It becomes really challenging to draw something together coherently. So I'll make another attempt and come back to commonality. So common threads. You earlier on said that you thought most people's lives. How did you say that? Do you remember making that comment?
Yeah, they use quite a bit of the same thread, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the elemental, like we're basically the same creatures here. It's the same, I don't know.
Get up for breakfast, go to work.
Well, those are the patterns of behavior.
Yeah.
I'm even thinking in terms of material,
Uh-huh.
like the gross material, we're not very complex. If we now, as a species, I guess I'll say, we're that capacity to, wherever that parsing capacity is, the ability to divide up reality, even though it's not more than one thing, there's a capacity to parse it. And the parsing that I guess it's the scientific method has afforded the species the opportunity to develop language that parses down to a very fine and highly elaborated cut, so to speak, of the fabric.
Yeah.
So when we say elemental, like what are we? Something like we're mostly hydrogen, I think we're mostly oxygen by mass.
Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen make up most of the CHON. They're all the first part of the periodic table.
So if you just start with just what's present, it's like we're basically the same.
Yeah.
So there's a strong common core,
Yeah.
and then what that obviously means then is that what we observe as differences are, for practical purposes, utterly superfluous. It's something like just the effervescence. It's like it's just there for fun. So is how I experience it.
Okay. Yeah. Because in the reality of this commonality of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, if you follow that back to what are each one of those composed of, what are they composed of, and we end up only with idea. And the idea has an intuition for, what's the word I'd want? It has an intention. And it uses its intuition to bring that forth through assembling these simple things. And it turns out to be a human body. Oh, and the human body creates a cosmos for it to play in, right?
Well, I hesitate to say it creates the cosmos, but it definitely creates things like civilizations, the artifices,
Well, yeah.
the artificial aspects of.
Well,
of the
I've
fabric.
come to the conclusion that this intention creates its own universe, its own cosmos. Everything that's in it, all the action that's in it, by radiation. It radiates its own consciousness, and it perceives it as whatever the cosmos seems to present. And it's the mud puddle, it's the stick, it's the sand, it's the mountain, it's the cloud, it's the atmosphere. It's the politics that when enough of these things associate with itself. And it's
That's how you understand politics.
yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, it makes up all these conflicting things that it happens to be aware of, right? Oh, it has this idea and it should be like that. It should be taller, should be shorter. It has it puts labels on things and then this has this evaluation of weight, oh, that's more prevalent or should be or should not be. It brings in all these mental aspects that really aren't permanent. They aren't the reality of things. But it's the perception of all these things that it makes for itself. And if you I look at the world today and I say, they sure haven't looked how to get along with each other. Well, why is that? Well, because they think they're different on this side of the water than those on the other side of the water.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at their commonality and the thing that they're doing together as the one thing that there is, right, is nothing turning into something with an intention.
Okay. You're more practiced at this dialogue than I am. I feel like I'm tracking, like I'm following what you're saying. It makes sense to me. What occurs to me, how do I do this? So you said what we're doing together. So there's right now you and I together are creating a very subtle artifact, I would say. We're playing with light and sound, digitally mediated. We're recording a dialogue between two bodies, and you and I, by some grace, it seems, are able to play just like what we're doing, in and through the use of language. The practice, I guess I'll say the practice of speaking words to one another.
And the words can give you feelings and understanding. Now, on this tapestry, can you take your hand and feel the fabric?
Yeah, so that's what I want to do. So if you put your hand up, so you start to you start to feel what's going on.
Yeah.
And I was musing yesterday that when it comes to the artificial, when it comes to the consequence of the craft, so there's the play with objects. So in the EMP scheme, I guess I'll say it, it's not a very eloquent way of saying that, but I'll say it that way. So it calls attention to certain fundamental relationships. So there's the relationship, it's body oriented. So body to self, whatever that sense of self is, and then it's body to environment. So what's the arena that I'm playing in here? And then there's body to object and body to body. So in the body to object play, that's where artifices come from. That's craft.
Yeah.
You get to start to create, we say things like tools. Well, what those do is afford whatever body it is that's grasping the tool real power to extend the body into the environment, into other bodies. The true self expands as a consequence of the play, the manipulation of objects.
I was watching you muse the other morning. When you come out and the moment captured you turned, and it's mostly you were looking out. your windows there, your big sliding windows at the side, and it captured you for quite a long time while your feeling nature and idea decided to what it was going to do.
Yeah. And all the while, I'm creating that artifact.
Yeah.
I created the recording that you observed,
Yeah.
some time and space different from when it actually occurred.
Mm-hmm.
And we're doing that now. And the point that I'm wanting to make is that in the moment of creation, and maybe ever, the local sense of self, the body, it doesn't know what the consequence of that creation is going to be, that artificial, that artifice, that artifact or artifacts.
Yeah.
So, which really comes for me right back to, well, what's the intent?
See, that's the beginning. Idea has some intention. Where there's nothing. The cosmos has intention in itself. And we pick up the first thread and bring it into existence, don't we?
So, okay, so this is that first thread. If you were to be so bold as to, I don't know if it's right to say characterize, or you could simply say more generically describe the nature of that intention, how would you do that?
Well, again, the feeling nature would come in as you start to draw forth that fiber out of nothingness. There's going to be a sensation.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's probably a good place to, what did you say? Form the tassel?
Okay, yeah.